Yes, but that's a funny part. If there's stuff that went in the part.
But it's, you have to have, you have to look up a part. Make sure that that works. The retaining wall can be compatible with. This is a armory.
So minimize that, go to,
Well, it would be a new wall.
minimize that, just minimize it. All right, and then we've got, I'm sorry, so here's the
Well, you did the right thing in getting the right.
problem is
But we need to.
that we've got the YouTube going. Okay, so we're just gonna close that completely. That was my mistake. You had it right the first time around.
And what else
And we're
would?
gonna open this up now. There we go. Okay. That makes sense.
Some kind of finished surface. That's why she amended her,
Yeah.
All right, it is 5:02 p.m. I want to call the Corpus Ferry Special Town Council meeting of March 24th, 2022 to order. All members of the council are physically present with the exception of Tim Jenkins. And Kristen, you have the reading?
Yeah, I sure do. Yeah, until I guess to do this a lot, you should know it. Until further notice, the Corporation of Harpers Ferry governing delivered bodies will hold meetings and or hearings virtually with Zoom, which provides for public participation during the public comment period when applicable and when posted on the agenda. Alternatively, the public may watch meetings by YouTube or listen by telephone. These options comply with the Open Governmental Meetings Act.
Thank you, Kristen. Are there any public comments, Debbie? Do you know?
No.
Okay. Again, it's whatever it is, 5:03 or 5:04. Again, I want to thank Debbie and Melissa for spending their evening with us this evening. Approval of the agenda, any alterations, additions, solutions to the agenda?
Well, I thought about moving item 3 down before item 8, seeing that there's some, we could have some discussion with that one with maybe our ordinance.
So you want item 3 to follow 7,
Correct.
okay?
And I move to strike number 10 after discussion with the office coordinator that there's an open question about one of the terms in the ordinance, and that it would be better to review it more thoroughly.
Any other?
Well, couldn't that discussion be part of?
Yeah,
the
sure,
meeting?
sure,
Okay, I'd rather not strike it from the agenda.
sure.
That's what I was about to say.
Other than moving item 3 following 7, no other discussions are, entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So
Chris, second from Storm, discussion on the motion, all those in favor of the motion. Okay. Number 1, discussion action regarding fiscal 2023 general fund and COLA fund budget approval. There you've got.
Council and Mayor. Before we get started, we need to lay the levy on this budget on April 19th. I'm getting some indication that there will be some people out of town, so I want to make sure that we're able to establish a quorum on April 19th. Can we do that now? But that is a state mandated date.
Okay, did everybody?
Would you say the date again? April 19th. I know Christian will be out of town. The mayor's going to be out of town.
April 19th.
Is it Tuesday?
Oh, we good.
All right, so we have Storm.
I have 11. With 3 other people.
This one you have to physically be here for that one.
Well, you don't have to physically be here, no.
I mean, if it's absolutely necessary, my wife will tell me, but I could. The time zone stuff, right?
What time are we talking about?
We have not established the time yet, but most likely at least 5, so Kevin can be here.
You have 6 on calendar.
Okay. And it shouldn't be a long meeting unless we end up adding things to it.
Yeah.
I'm just not positive.
Say that again, Laura.
I'm not positive, actually. How many do we lack now?
Well, so far I have 1. Are you in, Mr. Carter?
I actually have 2 things. At 6:30 and 7.
But you're in town. which is good.
I am in town, yeah. I don't know if we could do a 5 o'clock meeting or.
5:30 maybe.
All right, so Kevin, you're good from 5:30 on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Christian, you are possibly good from
A Zoom.
for a Zoomer. Storm, you're good. IP in person.
But let me just say, Kristen would be zooming from across the Atlantic.
You
I
know,
would
being
just
France,
like to,
Where are you going?
France.
so I would just like to bear that in mind.
And I could do 5:30.
You can do 5:30. Okay. So
Yeah.
see,
I feel that I can be there by Zoom if I'm not in there in person.
Okay, thank you. All right,
Thanks,
that
Laura.
gives us our 1, 2, 3. That gives us our quorum. Jim's a question mark, but at least we've got a quorum.
Okay,
Okay.
great. That's all.
5:30 on the 19th. Got that?
One agenda.
One agenda item. All right. Yeah, let's try not to add anything to it. Okay. Today, you are reviewing the approval for the levy estimate for fiscal 23, which will begin July 1, 2022. In comparison to the fiscal year 2022 revision to budget that you approved last month, this proposed fiscal 23 budget is only increasing by less than 1%. There has been an anticipation of some additional revenue stream that we have not experienced in previous years. However, this budget does not include those projections as to date, we have not realized any of those new revenue trends. We were conservative with income and held a bit more in reserves this time around to be able to respond to matching grant requirements for the various projects that have come before council in past months. On the expense side, we received more requests for money from both external and internal departments than ever before. We were not able to earmark funding for all of these requests. However, this budget supports many of them. If we receive income sufficient to forecast additional revenue as the year progresses, we may be able to open the door to some of the other requests that were made. And we request that research on these expenditures continue in each of the departments so that we can learn more precisely, if we're able to open this up, what those expenses might truly be. On the summary sheet that you have following the green column and the far left line descriptors, I'll highlight some of the areas of change for the expenses. First, however, regarding employee wages, a 5% COLA increase is incorporated for all employees on this budget. And PEIA insurance is predicted to increase roughly 5%. And the town contribution to PERS, the state retirement program, will be decreasing to 9% from 10% effective July 1 as mandated by that agency. 402 economic development, we are increasing to $15,000. We received about $22,000 in requests that could qualify for this line item. 415 office of the clerk is now set as a fully staffed position, not being shared between departments in other areas of this budget or with the water budget at this time. 700 police department accounts for personnel changes with the retirement of the police clerk and includes the wage increases as requested for that department in addition to the COLA increase for current staff. It does not afford for additional employees at this time. Equipment upgrades included our replacement of the body radios for that department. 759 public transportation has been increased to 4,500 and we have allocated 3,000 in economic development to public transportation, specifically to be distributed to the Eastern Panhandle Transit Authority. We learned through a presentation from the EPTA that Jefferson and Berkeley counties will soon cross the population threshold of 999,999 people. And that will halt federal funding that the EPTA has been using to operate since its inception. The EPTA will at that time become dependent on the communities it serves to fund their operations. And they have apportioned that funding needed to each municipality it serves based on the number of stops in each municipality. In total, they requested 7,500 from us, and that has been split between public transportation and economic development. Arts and Humanities 906, we received over $62,000 in requests that could possibly qualify for this category. We have distributed many of them to other areas of the budget. almost $30,000 was for annual events, and the rest was towards historic preservation and parks. 976 public safety includes the purchase of a new police cruiser to replace an old and aging vehicle. And 977 streets and transportation includes the high street grant match and some other matching grants, including the stormwater project. So, any questions that I can answer for anybody right now? You have a good mystical look on your face before.
Yeah, only one. What was our population figure?
999,999, and that was for Berkeley and Jefferson County together.
That's wrong. There's
Well,
less than 200,000
I
together.
I
think we're probably talking about the Hagerstown Eastern Panhandle metropolitan.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe the area that I described is larger than I described it. That is
Yeah,
very
still got
comparable.
ones, yeah.
I could be wrong
As
about that.
presented, the threshold would be crossed.
Whatever they presented, the area that they serve, we're gonna cross that threshold.
Right.
And they're uniformly asking for help from all municipalities that they serve. Right. Yeah, sorry.
Were descriptions ever supplied for the new parks and recs?
No, I have not specifically requested that, and when we respond to each of the entities after we get over this hump, we will, any questions that we have, we will ask of them and ask them to bring that back to us, at least by the time they request a specific one.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Everybody else did.
Yeah, and it wasn't that they, didn't think they shouldn't. Yeah, it was, I have not gone back and asked, and, I think that they would, most certainly.
Great.
They just haven't in the past, and it was just a matter of routine to them.
You may have answered it, but I want to make sure that I'm understanding. It looked like on the income end of things that the numbers are going down in the budget. Is that just being conservative or?
Yes,
Okay,
it's being conservative, and then also we put, even though there's the whole income line increased by almost 6,000, that's because we bumped up our reserves a bit. Okay, so we were trying to be conservative in the income, because that's always the wise way to start the year.
sure.
Giving, and so even by doing all of that, we're still only 1% away from where we are right now. And we're probably not quite as conservative as we usually are, because we have this anticipation of some perhaps other.
Yeah, and that's even with some extraordinary one-time items.
Yeah.
that aren't regularly going to be carried on the budget.
Right.
I was going to say that the highway would be a big change, but I think that's been put off a year now, so it's not going to.
Oh, closing 340.
Oh, closing 340.
Closing
Yeah,
340.
yeah, that, I don't think that plays a role here. We'll be finished with this budget by then.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yes.
All right, any other questions, council? All right, let's put a motion.
I move to approve
Wait a
the.
minute, we gotta do a roll on this, Kevin.
For general, we do, correct?
Yeah, you should, I think, for this item, yeah.
All right, Kevin, call the roll on this.
Or should I do a motion?
Well, let's get a motion.
Yeah, I move to approve the year-to-date fiscal year 2023 general and coal severance fund budgets as presented. Do we amend it?
A second.
Second from Storm, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Okay, Storm DeCostanzo,
Yes.
Christian Petrikowitz,
Aye.
Chris Carter,
Um,
Lowell Drake,
Aye.
Margaret, aye.
Aye.
Yes.
All right, number 2, discussion action regarding purchase of computer for the HFPD.
Right, so this is part of the budget that you, the budget revision that you approved for fiscal 22 in February. And you have a quote there for 4 units. And this is, these are for aging units that are downstairs full capacity and not very properly operable.
And we have bought a lot of computers in the past couple of years, laptops, and
Yeah, these
it's a
are
good thing we have.
quite old, frankly.
All right, motion.
I move to approve a purchase of 4 computers as presented on quote number 18606 for up to $7,600 from line item 700 police department supplies.
The second on the motion?
Second.
Second from Storm. Any discussion on the motion to approve up to $7,600 for HFCD computers?
I actually did. Question.
These are the Dells that we've had before.
The monitors are quoted at $345 each. It just seems very high.
Not too unusual. Like what a higher price gets you is typically higher refresh rates, higher pixel rates that are easier on the eyes. And for sure, like a graphics production level monitor would be 3, 4 or more times that. So it's definitely not your bargain monitor, but it's, from what I've seen, it's not unusual.
It just for the application, though, it just seems really high.
Are they watching a lot of video on that? Yeah, they're watching videotape of their body cams and all that kind of stuff, so, yeah.
Gotcha.
And they need
That's
precision, I think.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Can I have your signature, please?
Oh, okay, yeah, that's, I'll mention it, but then how do we, we need to get our invitation? Okay.
So we're kind of fumbling because Ms. Dennis, whose application is going to come forward, she has requested to be included in the discussion when that happens. So if that is acceptable, I'll need to take a break in the.
Oh, have we moved that item back?
To put that down. Okay, so once we get. I didn't send any.
Ms. Dennis.
Can you though
Who has
tell
the
her that
371
as soon as I can get a chance to send her the invitation, we'll do that? I didn't send it to you though, so I can't forward it.
I did send her the link.
Oh, did you? Okay,
Yeah.
well then, if she can just go ahead and join and we'll bring her in as soon as she's available, as soon as it's her time. Yeah. Okay.
And I had told her that we were item 3, so she may need to know, Melissa, that we're not the language.
All right.
All right, so we're going to item 4, discussion action regarding application to West Virginia Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. Debbie's got this. I will tell you that within the past week, I think, Debbie, we have received a flurry of requests from agencies inviting us to submit applications for funding for water infrastructure issues. We received one from Senator Manchin's office. We received one from the one that Debbie's going to be talking about. And we received another one. So we have 3 that we're dealing with and possibly 4 with Senator Capito's office also.
Wow.
So Debbie will cover the first one on this one.
This is kind of the moment we've been waiting for. So, yeah, and the idea that the idea here that we're talking about is trying to find a way to fund in whole or in large part the distribution system, which was left unfunded from the USDA loan because the price of everything doubled. And the means through which we had anticipated funding that distribution project commitment was through the extra cash that was generated from the interest rate advantage that we received because it was a lower interest rate. So ideally, we'd be, as we operate and receive that income, we'd be filling a bucket with that extra money. And when we had enough in there, we'd go after one of those projects. However, the interest rate that's being offered with this drinking water state revolving fund is just a few points over what we are paying with the USDA. That was 2.125, and this is 2.2 3/4. And so ideally, we could finance a chunk of that $5, $6, $7 million commitment that we have with a loan not unlike or similar to what we already have, and we should theoretically be able to pay that with the difference in what we're realizing in our from the advantage that we have over the lower interest rate that we've got than what we planned. So
I'm sorry, can you repeat what the new loan rate was?
this should be about 2.75 according to this paperwork. Yeah. So, so then what would happen is we could get a chunk of this done and then we have a fixed amount that we're paying over time. Met our commitment or not.
In reading that paperwork, how soon did we have to, I mean, we had a 10-year plan.
And it's actually longer than our 10-year
Okay,
plan.
so it's longer than a decade.
Mhm.
So if we fund it all, how long can we hold this money? I mean, before we have to spend it, if we take the loan, it's just the loan, we get the whole amount,
Well, we'd have to commit it to the project and activate on the project.
so we can get the whole, whatever we're missing, 7, whatever it
Well,
is.
so this is an application for us to say, look, we want to throw our hat in the ring and have you consider us for a loan, to do X, Y, and Z project.
No, I'm saying.
So, okay, yeah, no, so I just want to make sure you were.
Yeah, I was just
It's a little different
processing
than
it.
what you were saying.
I was just thinking like, there was some kind of like COVID money, you had to use it.
Oh,
no.
This is a loan, this is a loan. Okay.
For a project.
Okay.
And what we've learned from talking to Region 9 and Boy, and we've talked to Consolidate, we've talked to Tom Hood Singleton, we've talked to Region 9, and today we talked with the engineer about this, is that this project, along with the other 2 grant opportunities that we're looking at, grant opportunities from the federal level, are all projects that they're very interested in having shovels on the ground as soon as possible. And the thing that's attractive about our project is that it's all PSC approved. We've got diagrams. We are ready to go. All we would need to do is go through the Rule 42 assessment of our funds to see how much we could support in a loan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's some logistics, but we are miles ahead of people who are like, let me see if we want to make that line be changed.
So
Right?
this is one of the tools that we will be able to bring to bear to realize this project. Depending what happens with the other ones, the amount that we
We
might
don't know. Right?
borrow will.
And the county from the check.
Right, so this DWSRF application, we'd say, ideally, we'd say, okay, look, we would like you to consider us for this for up to X number of dollars. And we just send that off to them. And then they start processing, they will come back to us with, okay, we will consider you for X number of dollars. Maybe it's the whole kit and caboodle, maybe it's a portion. At the same time, we can run these other applications in for grants. And ideally, we get some combination of all that allows us to fund the whole thing, and we don't have to raise our rates, and
So,
we're done with that project.
so right now for this, like the sample motion said specify dollar, we would set that at the most that we would expect it to be.
Right.
And if we get these other opportunities, it will be much larger.
Exactly, and so to the amount of money, and we don't have to be specific, you could be, but you don't have to be. So today we talked with Prosecco Road, who is the engineer on the project. We've asked him to revisit the previous contract and how it was priced and to give us an updated price. We have to take into consideration this is EPA money. They will require American steel. That was confirmed. We also have all kinds of other price increases with pipe and blah, 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 right? So he is doing a cursory review of that. We expect to see that early next week. I've arranged with Jen to get to Region 9 to get together with her and complete the form. So you could approve it. So the other piece is that from the original infrastructure plan, the only component that we wouldn't want to take into consideration would be Elk Run, which we're taking out to fund with the ARPA money. So it was about $5.5–6 million, and he's going to reprice it. So I don't know, you may want to say up
Leave
to
it up.
7, or you may want to say what he recommends.
I was leave it wide open.
Yeah.
I used to be a finance manager, and whenever I went in financing, I always asked for more than I would
Absolutely.
need, and I let the institution push back on me. Here's what we can do.
And that's
And
the idea.
That's what we want to do. We want to get as much as we can, particularly at this 2 3/4 rate.
Right.
And this is just allowing, this is the intent. So this is the final document.
No, and you know what? If they come to us and say, okay, you can borrow $7 million, we don't have to take all of it. If we get grant money, we can say, well,
Right.
we don't want to do that. Or,
Only
you know,
one-page
yeah.
application. too.
Yeah.
And the other, and Debbie mentioned this, we've talked with our attorney for the water, Hoy Shingleton, was it Tuesday, Debbie? Tuesday, or
Yes.
Wednesday? And again, Debbie mentioned this, but it's very, very attractive because we are ready to go. And Hoy says that, if we consummate this loan or whatever, we could have groundbreaking within 60 days. That's how close we are. That's how, I mean, we have everything done. All the engineering studies are done and everything. And that is why this is so attractive. There will be, hopefully, for the granting agencies or the loaning agencies.
So we don't have the granting agencies on this agenda form, but we'll proceed with filling that paperwork out as well. And this is just, you know, also our mayor will sign off on this, and if you want to set a level of money, we can do that, for your motion.
Well, I'll take this and I'll try the motion. I move to submit an application of interest to the West Virginia Drinking Water State Revolving Fund for a loan based on building out the entire distribution system of the planned water upgrade that was not funded to the USDA loan pending the updated pricing
From the engineer.
from the engineer. I want to leave that open. I don't want to take it.
That's the first 2/3 of.
Okay, just, mumble through again.
I'll mumble it through. I move to submit an application of interest to the West Virginia Drinking Water State Revolving Fund for loan to fully fund the build out of the distribution system upgrade that was not funded to the USDA loan up to the updated price from
Engineer.
the engineer.
So, thanks, Chris.
Can I second?
We have a second from Chris. Discussion on the motion.
And I apologize, the water commission reviewed this last night, and I didn't, I'm sorry, I did not, confirm or change that before we go.
Oh, no, so we did, make a recommendation to the council that we.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion? Raising my hand very high on that. Number 4, we'll go to fire discussion action regarding award of bid.
Okay.
For removal, transport, and disposal of the sludge from the water plant. Who's got that?
Except me, and Storm and Laurel, all jump in, but the committee of the Budget Finance Committee with our financial officer, Deb Kelly, worked on this the other day.
Can we have that now?
Yes, please, yeah, and then you can look at these here. It's a little complicated, but what we did is we spent over 2 hours on this. We used an outside company to help us through this process. Bid Express was an awesome experience. We got we had 3 different vendors that we did not have ever before. We had very competitive bids. That's why we're having this is why the meeting took 2 hours. And we use this sheet here, these sheets, to help us develop a scoring system of each of the bids. And as you can see, I won't mention the names, but I'll just say bid 1, 2, and 3. Bid 3 was very high, and so we dropped that bid out. The committee, as you can see from a point standpoint, along with the we went with even though the point, what's the points here, 367 and 360, we selected bid 1 for the fact that they had not the lowest bid, but they had the bid that was from a time constraint. You have to have this completed by May 15th.
Good.
Okay, gotcha. You can jump in anytime.
Well, to that end, I'll just say that we confirmed from this morning, we have 1 more week on that, and it's going to May 23rd, but we still are under this obligation to get these out, this cleaned as soon as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when we did this, we did select the one, the committee did that at the time, but then we asked Deb to contact each of the two vendors, the 1 and 2, for the timing. We had to know about the timing and whether they can take the materials. As soon as they take them, it's theirs. And so we have now, you guys are gonna have to put your thinking caps on because this bid 2 is now a very competitive bid.
So there were some questions that, the motion that came out of the committee was to recommend that they accept bid 1 for the estimated cost, pending confirmation of the start date, completion timeframe, affirmation that all necessary permits have been acquired, and total cost estimate for the top 2 bidders. So I formulated an email to each, sent to each one. I contacted them to let them know what was going to be happening. I'm sending this email. And for number 1, the first question is that we are in the process of upgrading our water treatment plant and are required to have the tanks clear within the next 30 days or so. We did not make it. We didn't realize that the time frame was going to be like completely an issue. We thought that it was going to be more readily an option based on the first go around of bidding that we did. And so what is your earliest start date and when could the work be completed? And right now, so the response was, as his schedule is set right now, we would be able to complete the work within 30 working days from the contract, which is, I think, May 9th. And then the next question is, have all permits been acquired for you to begin work? If not, do you have an option of removal until the necessary permits are required, and what are the ramifications or risks if you remove this sludge and then did not get required permits to finish the process? His response is all permits are in place. And I was able to confirm that the price that you see is accurate as we calculated it. That was the last one.
Can I ask the question? What were you saying about May 9th? That was the email from number 1, right?
Yeah, he said that at the latest, May 9th would be, he said that he can commit to completing the work within 30 days of 30 working days of the contract, not calendar days, but working days. So if we were to provide a contract to him on Monday, 30 working days from there is right about May 9th. So, but now that's the latest, right? He has to, he's looking at his schedule and saying, yeah, right. And then on the item on vendor 2, there was some, so
This one's a little more complicated.
yeah. So oh, there we go. Sure, I wrote it in there. Okay. So their answer to the first one about I hate these things that go in reverse order. Your order is confused. Okay, so regarding the timing, the earliest we could start would be April 11. If we couldn't make that fit in the schedule, we would guarantee to start April 25 and anticipate the job not lasting longer than 3 days. Have all the permits been required? We plan to haul the residuals to Maryland where the water treatment plant residuals are registered as soil conditioners. Once awarded the job, they would pull the required analysis and submit to the Maryland Department of Agriculture for their soil conditional approval. And based on that, so they can't spread it on the ground until they get that approval. However, what they can do, I'm just going to combine this with the second set of questions that I sent them. What they can do is they can, as soon as they get the contract, they can come and pull a sample. They can have it evaluated in their own lab to make sure that it aligns with what we told them was in the sample from our data paperwork. As long as that matches up, they are absolutely confident that they will get the Maryland soil conditioner permit. They just have to go through the process of getting it. So they will commit, as long as the sample matches the profile that we gave, they will come and get it as early as, what did I say, April 11th, and is guaranteed to start by April 25. then they will take it and it will be theirs. They will sit it in a pile until they get the permit to lay it on the ground. And if for some reason it would go that they couldn't lay it on the ground, they would send it to a wastewater treatment facility. But they will not come and take it until they've had a chance to test the soil and compare it to our profile. If they find that it doesn't match our profile, they're not going to take it. But once they take it, they're not bringing it back. And once they take it, they want to be able to be paid for it.
And that's my chief concern with this bid, is it's a thing that if that happens, we'd be back at square one, and we would not meet the deadline to get it done.
And my question is, why is the second company able to remove it in 3 days when the first company says they might take a week?
Well, I'm not really sure, but I feel like both of these are similar methodologies in creating a slurry and pulling it out, and then they're hauling away the slurry. And so it might have to do with how far they have to travel to get to their disposal site. It might have to do with how big are the vehicles that they're going to use to take them, the trips. I don't know.
Variability of the equipment.
It
that
might,
we
it might
use
just be
to
that
use the
kind of,
slurry.
it might have to do with how many people or how much equipment or how big the equipment is that they're using to.
Or their existing schedule.
Yeah, but I think the thing that's encouraging between the two is that that the amount of gallons of product they think they're going to need to move are similar, and that all seems to be jiving pretty well.
And they used the same method. The one that was much more expensive used a different method that required a lot more machinery,
Processing.
equipment, and they were coming from further away and all the rest of it.
Yeah, that system seemed like if you had, toxic
Right?
stuff in your.
They were pulling that all the way down to solids before they took it off of our property. That was a whole nother method.
Yeah. Very thorough,
Yeah.
we had a great,
We learned a lot.
Yeah.
it was like 40 pages. But I can tell you that all the companies are professional. We can tell by, this is what they do. This is not some Joe Schmo that's never done this before. These are professionals. So,
Yeah, and like the number two, they do work for people in our region.
yeah.
Leesburg.
And 2 is 14K less.
So, yeah,
It is, but there is the risk that it could not happen at all. Even though it's a low risk, there would be great ramifications if it happened. And also, this is a company we could work with in the future. Just right now, we have this deadline that there is a great cost to us if we're not able to get that material out.
yeah, I mean, what you're saying is that if for some reason they don't get back to us within like a week or two and then they say, well, sorry, that sample doesn't match up, so we're not gonna be able to do the work. Then we have to get back to the other vendor, and the clock stops ticking. We have to get into his cycle. And so we would be pushing perhaps the envelope of,
It introduces
that's
uncertainties
what you're saying.
that don't exist for the first. And the reason why the first vendor is able to do it is they own their own disposal facilities, and they also have done.
They did sample, they did the analysis.
They did the
I mean, they're like ready, they're ready to go.
All right, let's help them out.
And if we did, go ahead and award to number one, we would be awarding to, other than the lowest bidder, so we would just need to, enumerate why we've done that, and that it is in the best interest of the municipality. Taking the other could be a concern, and you may want to just, run that legal verbiage up the ladder.
Does that language need to be part of the motion?
Well, I don't know that it necessarily needs to be part of the motion.
But we need to have our ducks in a row in case
Yeah.
something,
And
somebody
we'll have
looks at
to
it.
write it out and sign off on it, and then just make sure that that is correct. I did get in touch with, our legal, contact, but I did not hear back.
And our recommendation is always the best vendor. It's not the lowest cost vendor, it's the best vendor. And that means they have to meet all the, the determinants that we found that are critical to a project.
And both of these prices are very well within what we budgeted. Very well.
I would like to make a motion. I move to recommend the town council accept the bid from Commonwealth Disposal Inc. with an estimated cost of $35,200 for an amount up to $47,000 pending legal review.
Second on the motion. Second from Chris. Discussion on the motion.
So explain the 47, that's to allow for if the project were to go, it ended up being more material than they're expecting, takes more time, that would give us the leeway to be able to do it.
It's been sitting in the tanks for over 10 years. If it's more compact than they think it is, it might require more slurry or more of that. It's just allowing.
And we're never gonna allow this to happen again. They're supposed to be cleaned on a regular basis, not decade.
And that's still within budget, even if we're going to go up.
Even if it went
And that's
over
a very conservative
And we
vote.
also probably like,
this morning too.
yeah, we want to probably stick to a vendor. Maybe this particular vendor from that time, from now on.
Coming on an annual basis, so.
Yeah.
It's the 47,000 from them.
No, the 35,200 is from them, and we applied the very worst case. It's not going to be more than that amount that we could.
Because you use one of their figures of per gallon of sludge.
Yes, and then added a pad on top of that.
And your wiggle room was in the motion.
Correct.
Yes, he's got plenty.
We just don't want to be down there at the plant and now we're going over that amount of money and we're in a mess. We don't want that happening. We gotta get it out of there.
Other discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion. Oh, thanks for that group. Who was it? Debbie and Laurel and Christian and Storm. Who else?
That was the four of us. That was it.
Yeah, Team Sludge.
Over 2 hours, but
Love our bidding
the bid
platform.
express is awesome. And we're gonna hit them with a new one soon.
Job well done.
Yeah, it's already paying dividends to the church and reaching more vendors that are qualified.
Great system. Number 6, discussion action regarding change order number 1 for water treatment plant upgrade. Debbie.
Okay, so, in the water project, we have approved 2 amendments for the RPR, a $60,000 amendment and a $44,500 amendment, which would take our RPR representative to what we thought was going to be, what are you gonna call it? Complete, substantial completion. That has now been moved out about another month right now, but anyway, so, those are 2 things that were coming out of our contingency fund, which was originally $26,050. This change order covers all physical changes to the project that we are aware of at this time. They've spent a lot of time vetting it and trying to get them all in one change order. They do not anticipate any other things that coming on the horizon. They are enumerated in the documentation that you have with all kinds of specifications and general descriptions and amount of money for each one. So this totals $114,022. So with this approved and the other 2 amendments that we have, our contingency fund will then remain at $45,528. Any questions?
And according to the engineer this morning, as of now, they do not anticipate any additional change orders.
Yeah, I mean, not any other change orders, right? You might, depends on where we are with the RPR and how long the project goes on, but
That's it. Okay, motion on the,
I move to approve change order number 1 as submitted by the engineer for the water treatment plant upgrade.
second on the motion. Second from Chris. Any discussion on the motion to approve amendment number 1? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion?
I want to get them, I'll be here tomorrow and not Monday, so I want to get everything out. I'll take care of that. Thank you.
Okay, next item. Discussion action regarding invoice to water customer for work performed by Waterworks.
Chris, I brought you in, you'll have to unmute.
So, this is, I think we're gonna let Chris lead off with the description of, what's going on here. I'm gonna distribute to each of you a redacted prepared invoice that you are considering. This is an invoice that's going to be sent to a water customer. So you, as the owner, need to just approve this, and it's not something you do very often, so. All right, Chris, are you there?
Yeah, yes, I am.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, how you guys doing? Okay, and you can hear me fine?
Yes.
Okay. On February 23rd, 2022, a leak was discovered on the town's right-of-way on a main servicing a customer's house. I had a verbal agreement with the contractor who laid the main that they were responsible for the main for 1 year after they installed it. I contacted the contractor and confirmed he was responsible for any repair to the main. The main break was threatening the gravel road and the customer's driveway, in addition to putting tremendous pressure on our system due to water loss it was generating. Therefore, the interest of time and the contractor and I agreed that Harpers Ferry Waterworks would perform the repair work and we would bill the contractor for that work. And that's what we do. We have a list of the breakdown. Deb, do you have the list of the breakdown?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we did to prepare this was we took the amount of work, the labor, the cost of the equipment, the various equipment that was used and the things that were purchased. Also ran a comparison on that to who we use for contracting of street work and developed this invoice.
Yeah, that answers my question. All right, is there anything else? Good. I move to approve and submit invoice number 100 as presented and amended.
Second on the motion. Second from Laurel. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, could I mention something on the sludge real quick?
Go ahead.
Okay, so what's nice about the new system we have, we actually have a sludge meter that I'll be able to maintain and monitor the sludge going into the sludge pit and be able to determine when we need, and we're going to be running Oscar, and if Oscar doesn't work out, because Oscar's relatively inexpensive to run, then we can look for other options like you were talking about. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Sludge Meter is also my favorite Peter Gabriel song.
Okay, number 3, discussion action on approval of permit application 371 Henry Clay Street. Chris, is that yours?
Yeah, I know there's been some, and Melissa, do we have Ms. Dennis on?
She's not going to join in. She just wanted to listen.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I've been texting with her, so
His guy, did he?
Guy has not joined in. Mm-mm.
No. He's not there.
Okay. So I know there's been some, this was a confusing permit because it involves work on the applicant's property, and it involves alteration of the right of way, as has been done at other properties along Henry Clay Street, which you may know has its limits in space for parking. And so while there are some questions that have come up and some concern about the wall that is being proposed for construction, that is not what Planning Commission considered. We only dealt with permission to alter the public right of way along the street.
The question of can it go there? Can something go there?
Yes, and because one thing depends upon the other, that wall could not go up without this permission. And likewise, it wouldn't be the need to alter the right of way and take out this old dry stack that is right on the right of way.
This is proper process. Anytime the planning commission, because I was at a training training from our town attorney to the planning commission. Anytime that the planning, that there's an issue with town property, whether it's an easement or some other place in town, and private property, planning commission must get involved, and then town council must approve it. But that's not approval of a permit. That's approval of the fact that they can put that there.
Yeah.
Whatever structure.
Yeah, it's still considered a permit, but what we have decided, because this involves both, we are going to attach this to any permission that is granted by either the BZA or the OCO.
I have a problem when it's called permit because then the resident thinks it's approved. And I can tell you, I've been in landmarks for 4 years now, and I can't tell you how many projects never get in front of us that are having to do with material. That's what we care about. We care about the historic character of this town, and we're losing this character. I mean, between rough materials, window materials, exterior materials on properties like fences and walls and such, and we're the guardian of that. And I can't tell you how many times it's gone past us and it got approved, they got a permit, and it's up, and there's nothing we can do anymore. So that's why I was like potentially overreacting on this, because I thought it was an approval for the permit. Should have been approved for the right of way to do
And
it.
that's what the
Right.
motion is.
Right, but I just want to make sure that it's not approval of the permit yet. It still must get in front of the Historic Landmarks Commission, which we haven't seen this permit. We haven't seen this. I feel it's come out of, that hasn't, for some reason it hasn't, it's not in process.
Well,
And that's your fault.
no, it is in process. I mean, the BZA chair has,
But we should have gotten it too.
generally it goes to the BZA and then they have been
No,
asking for
Kevin
advice.
Hamilton, our ordinance officer, he approves these. It's just a slam dunk. He just approves them, writes permit, it's done. It takes the money, it's done. But if it has to do something he's not sure about, then especially if it has to do with material, we have to look at, this is an armory house. This is an 1830s, 1840s house. This is a significantly old house. We have to be a little careful about.
Although it does seem clear to me from what you explained, Chris, that what we're dealing with now is just saying that something can be put there. It's not a building permit.
Yes,
It's a
but
store.
I also want to clarify that the chair of Historic Landmarks was included in several emails about this over a month ago. There were addendum made to the application based upon some of the concerns that were expressed. So, it's a little
I
bit
get it,
more.
I get it.
a
I
little
just
bit more
think, I think things have to get in front of the whole commission. It would be just like you're making a decision for the planning commission, because you're chair. But I still think it should get in front of your full committee, commission. It's like these things need to, but we're just sensitive to how, I can't tell, I got a whole list. There's probably 7 or 8 projects since I've been on here that we didn't even see and they got built. And some of the projects though, that we did get in front of, we were able to modify them and help. We always help people. We're not trying to be Dr. No. We're trying to get these things through. We're trying to help the resident, but also to help them recognize the importance. The economic value to their house is so important if they keep it historic looking.
Chris, has the second part already been addressed at this point, or are we only talking about the right of way issue?
Oh, we are only talking about the right of way tonight. That's all that we are passing. It is called a permit in our ordinances, but it is a permit to alter the right of way.
So the owner needs to understand, don't just call your contractor up tomorrow morning and start going on this thing. This is not complete. That's why I'm worried about that word.
She is clarified on that. I corresponded with her and I said that, now there may be, depending on what we do tonight with this fence ordinance, that may have some repercussions to whether the BZA is involved or not too. But I told her that would not be my decision.
And then for the next step, will it be going before a body for approval of what would actually be built?
Right now, the BZA is arranging for a hearing.
But why is BZA in it yet? I don't get that. I mean,
Well,
explain it to me.
there were two concerns that came up. Again, we're not discussing what's on the directly what's on the agenda tonight, but there were two concerns expressed with the original application. One was the material.
Cinder block.
Yes, and so she made an alteration based upon what some of us thought code, and perhaps there needs to be some further discussion on that. The other being our old friend that keeps coming up over and over and over again, a retaining wall within the setback. And that's what we're dealing with item 8.
Yeah, I share Christian's concern, but do feel like the main concern is the material is what is going to be built there, and that is going to be addressed by the process going forward.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the question then. So what they're done, since I'm looking at a picture. Say, she's asking for the right of way, the owner's asking for the right of way
Yeah.
to remove dirt or stone or whatever's there, build a retaining wall, which is right on the right of way.
Yeah, this present dry stack, and there were several nice pictures in the application.
Yeah, I saw it, yeah.
I actually wasn't, it wasn't in the file.
It's not in the file. I emailed it yesterday. I thought that Pat was going to attach it when I submitted the agenda request. So I apologize that you didn't see that earlier, but yeah, I did.
We sent a separate email.
And so anyway, this present dry stack is in the public right of way.
And probably had been eroded there from further up the hill, really over decades.
Possibly. But the proposal would involve doing away with this old stack to expand room for a couple of cars for her to park right in front of the house.
I'm sensitive to the residents' need. I just want everybody to know that. I'm also sensitive to the town's needs to make sure we preserve our historic character, especially the front of the house. If there's a brick wall, I have cinder block type blocks in my property. You can't see them. They're in the backyard, but it's not in my front yard.
And it sounds like that will be addressed in the next step of this process.
Yeah, we'll have to, always let historic landmarks get involved with materials, please. We're just been bypassed repeatedly. Not you, Chris, but somehow Kevin, and he probably got it to Guy, and somehow he didn't get it to the rest of them.
All right, let me just say this, and then we'll move on. Christian, I don't think there's anyone seated around this table, or hopefully anyone listening, that does not disagree with you on that. I wholeheartedly agree with your issue on this. I would strongly suggest, Christian, that you reach out to Guy and strongly suggest that you have some very informative discussions regarding this. To me, it sounds a little bit like a process issue where there's communication drawbacks. I had the exact same concern that are we going to have a cinder block wall with its parged or stucco. I think that needs to be clearly vetted and with Guy taking the helm on that,
Right.
but with strong input from you. I totally agree. I don't think anybody, like I said, anybody on the table disagrees with that. I'm saying that, Chris, would you put a motion on the floor?
Before you do, are you going to use the wording that's on the request? Because I have a suggested change.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay.
Where it says to provide for a parking space, we'll change that to provide for residential parking.
Yeah, that's clear.
And before you do that, I have one more question, which is, what if there are houses?
This is a landlocked property.
There are houses that don't have parking. And I think in the past, someone has asked, can you blast away this rock in order to put a parking space there? Are we I'm sure that the planning has thought about, are we setting a precedent that anyone can remove or ask to remove whatever is there in order to put a residential spot?
Well, the process is to be approved by planning and the county council. And the truth is, there's already precedents all over town. And many of those parking areas have been added with the proper authority, and many have gone just on their own.
But to address it specifically, I think the answer is yes. If the project that looked like this, that had these circumstances came before us, yes. But if someone was proposing blasting 12 feet into solid rock, I don't feel like that's a precedent that you could use. Now, you'd be laughed in your face if you said, well, you allowed a couple of feet in eroded land to be moved back versus blasting a wall.
Now, I can tell you, just a few years, the first term I was on, we had 3 of these come to the town council. And I think 2 of them never got to the planning commission. They got straight to us. Now, talk about out of process. And so we look like a bad guy. There were 3. And the one we did, the bollards and the boulders for the Harpers Ferry Cemetery. Trust me, that was a year's worth of effort on it. Every commission committee was involved, the planning was involved in that one. And because it was an easement issue. By the time you get into easements, it's very sensitive.
Well,
But 2 others never got into the planning commission. They went straight to the town commission.
I think that you answered my question, which is that we the carefulness in which we apply this. So it's not a blanket approval and you're going to get a parking space. It does depend on.
And we have 2 properties on Washington Street, I'm on the parking committee, that do not have on-site parking. And we, as a courtesy in the town, and I'm fine with it, I think it's good, we allow parking, we give them a sign and everything that they get 1 parking spot at a minimum. It's not even in our ordinance, it's just something we do as a courtesy to our residents.
Was the motion seconded?
May I say something? Suzanne was watching. She didn't join in, but she sent me a text that she is aware of the concerns, and she also understands the requirements for the approvals through the other committees.
Awesome, thank you, Suzanne.
Go ahead, Chris. Give me a motion.
and the other thing I want to, the point being, that this was unusual being involving both the public and the private property. When I did this years ago at my house, it was all public property. We were given permission up to the stone wall. That was, so,
Yeah, all right, give me a motion.
okay. And I based this on the planning commission's recommendation. I move that the corporation of Harpers Ferry permits the alteration of the right of way at 371 Henry Clay Street for the
To provide residential.
to provide room for residential parking.
All right, good job, Chris. Second on the motion.
Second.
From Storm. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion?
Do we need to say how many spaces? Or are we just going to say no residential? Okay.
Just residential, yeah, she has, according to this, 75 feet.
He said there would be room for 2 cars at the top.
Smaller.
Okay.
All right, let me try to,
Oh, I'm looking at the
let me
one.
try to vote again. All those in favor of the motion? All right, thank you.
45 feet.
All right. All right, discussion action number 8, guys and guys. Discussion action on second reading approval of ordinance 2022-01, fence and related walls.
Okay.
This is ordinance number 2022-01, an ordinance amending part 13 of the codified ordinances of Harpers Ferry, setting requirements, restrictions, and certain exemptions for construction and replacement of fences and retaining walls, and setting regulations for temporary destructive fencing.
Okay, okay. Now back to the one we just approved on Clay Street. That wall is 5 feet tall. What do you think? 5 feet tall, and that's the front of the house, and this proposed ordinance has 4.
Is that for retaining walls or fences? I mean,
Have to
it's
read the
gonna make
ordinance.
it,
Well, that's where the BZA comes in. Like,
Yeah, that's what they're aware of.
Okay, I'm just saying,
Yeah, I understand. Chris.
so this thing may have to get in front of BZA after we approve this reading of this, because 4 foot's it, and then it has to go to BZA.
Well, what we just did was just the first tumbler of the process.
Good point, Christian.
Okay.
All right, so, where are we? Motion. Right, good. Yeah, got a motion to approve the second reading of 2022-01.
second and final reading.
We're going to do that.
Yeah, I move to approve the second and final reading of ordinance number 2022-01.
Second on the motion. The second from Chris. A discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion? Thank you. Number 9, discussion action, second reading for approval of ordinance 2022-02 vacant and uninhabitable vacant structures.
Ordinance number 2022-02, an ordinance to amend the modified ordinance of the Parks area defining vacant and uninhabitable structures and how they are determined. Creating a vacant structures board and a registry of vacant structures, providing for enforcement of corrective actions and rights of appeal, and regulating the use of registry fees.
Thank you, Kevin. Motion.
I move to approve the second and final reading of ordinance 2022-02.
Second on the motion. Second from Laurel. Thank you, Laurel. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion? Thank you. Any other information for this body? I knew that.
If you're paying attention.
It was number 10.
That's an ordinance.
Yeah.
Ordinance number 2022-03, an ordinance to amend Article 735 of the codified ordinances of Harpers Ferry, providing for a temporary special event vendor license.
Thank you, Kevin. Now we're going to get into a
Yeah,
discussion on this.
so after the first reading, I had some concerns that it was overly broad. And I looked at some of the other similar ordinances, in particular, that there wasn't really a definition of special event. It was just whatever the town declares, and concerned that it would be overbroad, just place an overbroad burden on, we don't know what to hold an event. However, as written, I feel like if the definition of vendor is someone who sells to the public as part of an event, that it's not as hazardous. That said, I looked in the ordinances and there did not appear to be a definition of vendor. So it can't be said that that is the definition. So I feel like it's premature to pass this at this point.
Vendor has a common definition.
But is that definition, like if you're holding an event and let's say you have someone selling hot dogs, that's clearly to be a vendor, someone who's selling to the public, collecting money for that. If I'm holding an event and I'm hiring someone to bring a tent, is that a vendor?
And what's a special event? That gets really, originally I thought it was town events. We have.
Well, I agree with you. I think there needs to be more discussion about what a special event is. I don't think that this ordinance is pinning us down there on anything. I think
It's actually very broad. It basically says if the town council declares it to be a special event, it's a special event.
Yeah, it's really complicated because, there's businesses, there's in town that do events, we do events, and there's private people do events, B&Bs do events.
Yeah, and the benefit of this ordinance would be if it really is narrowly tailored and just means if you were having someone sell it to the public, it would work for that. In that if your event did not involve selling, it wouldn't feel like, every last thing that happens in town needs to get a formal stamp of approval by the town council.
But isn't the stuff, but
it's not clear.
isn't that like selling? They sold you the use.
Well, that's why I feel like it's not well defined enough to pass right now, so we have to answer these questions.
So you're proposing that we clear it up with the land?
Yes, to workshop it, and my understanding, after talking with the office coordinator, that she agreed that there's no longer the same urgency. There had been a specific vendor that she had been hoping we could pass this for in order to use this mechanism, and that vendor is no longer in the picture. There will be other vendors in the future, but it's not for months from now where that will come into play.
Yeah, this is a big thing in some towns, just special events. We looked at it, we looked at it, it's Storm and Nut and Patty, we all got together for a meeting.
Martinsburg, we looked at Winchester.
It's like this, right? It's pages, and pages of stuff. This is a big, big subject.
And I don't feel it's something that can just be handled by the process. There needs to be at least some framework, not as extensive as a larger city would have, but some framework.
But we could possibly use, excuse me, we could possibly use this for, what we have talked about is, what we call it, a fair, like a, farmer's market, basically. We talked about a farmer's market at Hunter's, and there would be membership, something like that. So it can be useful to have this, when we agree on it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that part is urgent. I'd like it to be there in time for old time Christmas.
Yes.
I mean, that was one of the reasons. I don't believe it was the only reason, but one of the reasons why Oddfellows is not going to participate in the flip-flop this year, because it is a complicated process to have someone who wants to sell a couple of T-shirts to come in and have to apply for a regular business license.
I feel like it's still front burner and it's something that we need to address, but the immediate urgency is not here to get it done right now. And I think it's worth our time to look at it a little bit closer.
Yeah, and I will also say, I also had a flurry of emails with a town resident who shared a lot of concerns about what a special event is. And, we batted things back and forth. Are we talking about commercial things? Are we talking about every church bake sale? Are we talking about
Women's club with their plant sale?
Yeah, and it has to be fair.
if someone has a
Yeah.
fundraiser for cancer at their house, and they're selling things to raise money, I think.
That's what led me to this conclusion. I thought that I could go and look at these and winnow them down and realized it was a much larger task than something that can be done in 3 days by one person.
Yeah. To add to what you're saying, I agree. I'm reading the definition of vendor from Black law. It's very broad. And it seems that what's more fitting here is itinerant vendor, which is the term that's used in some of the ordinances in some of the other municipalities that I looked at. But itinerant vendor is not even perfect for this application, because itinerant vendor, according to Black's law, is the name given to a seller who travels from place to place to sell his wares.
Yeah. That's a peddler or a carnival. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna just refer this back to the originating, who was
Well, it came from ORC.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we need to do something about it. I think there's these vendors, they have to get state licenses. Oh my gosh, it's like, we gotta have something like easy and quick for these people to just do once in a while, something like this.
Well, and also not making it so broad that anything in town is defined as.
So either come to a meeting or write your ideas and concerns down so that we'll have something to discuss, and maybe we can invite Pat to a meeting, or else ask her to do the.
She's got a pile of stuff.
And I'd be happy to, I did collect up some notes and just let me know if I can help.
Okay, good. Now, any other items just for general discussion? Hearing none, motion to adjourn. Second motion from Chris. We have a second from Christian. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion. We are adjourned at 6:06.